Welcome to the Clean Power Hour. I'm Tim Montague. Today on the Clean Power Hour, roofers and solar. I'd be worried if I was a resi solar installer. Next Wave. John says we have to talk about Next Wave. They're doing something like spray painting atomic level solar PV. It's going to be cool. John got a new Hyundai Ioniq. I almost said EQ. Ioniq 5. It's not the easiest word to say, is it, John?
No, it's a little weird. It's a little bit weird. But the EQ one we should talk about too. That's that Mercedes. That's pretty sweet conversation.
Yeah, I think we did mention that a couple shows ago. Well, welcome to the show, commercial solar guy John Weaver. Looking forward to another live broadcast coming to you every Thursday at 10:45 Central, 11:45 Eastern, and just count backwards if you live out west. So you can find all our content though at cleanpower.group/podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up and a rating on your favorite podcast platform, even though John Weaver never listens to the show. You do. So, and you care, and we're here for you. That's why we do this show, other than making John laugh. So, John, we talked about the Tesla solar roof and you were geeking out on the details of the solar roof, but I'm actually quite down on the solar roof. I think Tesla got it wrong. I think that GAF and Certainteed and a company called Suntegra are giving Tesla the real run for their money. And the reason for that, and I'll put this on screen, is that they've made a product that is just a standard type of a shingle that roofers are used to seeing, right? It's a nailable 48-foot long. Now it's longer than a standard roofing shingle, but it's a nailable format shingle. And the end result though is something that looks like this, which is it's not a great look, but it's a better look than, I would say, crystalline solar PV. What do you think?
I am big on the tech. Well, first off, I hope that there are 75 different people who put out products like this and 1 million homeowners agree with you every single year, because there are 5 million houses getting their roofs redone.
Yes.
And as of yet, Tesla has not deployed the capacity to fulfill its sales pitch. And that's it. And, Tim, you're taking this wonderful, pragmatic view of life. Hey, the thing that exists is real, and we should celebrate the thing that exists. And here it is, buy it, and bam. And so, yeah, the product from an aesthetic standpoint, which is the main sales pitch of these products, it's better than standard modules that some people push back against. So cool. I'm okay with standard modules, but it doesn't matter. People got their house, they got their taste. So bam. So it fits that aesthetic a little better. Two, the fact that it exists and it's easy to install matters. I wonder how it's going to scale in sales. There have been prior iterations of this product type, and they haven't moved. I once wrote a poem, a love story for RGS Energy when they bought the Dow solar shingle and tried to re-up it a couple of years ago. They were putting out press releases every quarter. $20 million in deals signed, 40 million, 80 million. They broke like $120 million in potential roofs installed. And then they went BK like 6 months later. And it was like, oh man. And I was just so hoping this was like 2018. And so somebody's going to do it. And I've met the Certainty folks at shows, and they said the best thing for their business ever was Tesla making it popular. So that makes me happy. GAF is an amazing roofing company, and they deploy roofs all day long. But
largest roofing company in the world.
So far, my interactions with them have been choppy in getting bids as I need, because it's taking time for them to deploy. There's growing pains deploying a new product. They built a new factory to assemble the product in the U.S. Roofers are roofers. Roofers are good at roofing. They can look at a roof and be like, bam, that's the cost. That's how long it'll take. We'll be back in a week. They live on different time frames than us 6-month solar guys and all the paperwork we do. So I'm very hopeful of it. I love the fact that it can just drop in, and I'm hoping that they get 1 million roofs a year done of this product. So yeah,
I just think of all the roofing companies out there. There's something like 50,000 roofers in the United States, and there might be 5,000 solar installers. And so to scale this problem and to meet the demand of all the new roofs, there's so many new roofs going on, and every new roof should be a solar roof. And the only way I see to scale that is to integrate solar and roofing and those industries. And it's okay if you need a solar expert on your roofing company team. That is doable. We can scale that, but I just don't think the other is practical. Of course, it's happening, and that's how the industry got its start, but that's always the case with new technologies, right? Um, Look at
by the way,
anything.
I do like the Tesla product better though, just to let you know.
Oh, it's sexier for sure.
Yeah.
Way sexy. Totally agree, but it's way expensive.
I don't know
And
if it's that expensive from the numbers I've seen. I think they're just figuring out how to install it.
oh,
When you
figures
combine the
figures
roof,
the figures I've seen is like 4x crystalline.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's too early for us to know. I think the pricing's too crazy, and they include batteries and a roof replacement. So the product should be more expensive than crystalline. For
Yeah.
like a 10 kW, it should be another 4K, 5K, 6K because it's replacing roof material. And then people add in like 2, 3 batteries, and it's like you're like $100,000 resi system. Why is that? Well, it's got batteries and a roof included. So I did rough math on the system once, and it came out to be a $2.75 a watt system. I subtracted out the roof that it was replacing and the batteries, and it came out at 275. So I don't know, maybe it's up to 350 now, but 350 is a standard solar project in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I think in my opinion, my jury is still out on the cost structure of the Tesla roof. The only issue with it, scale it, baby.
Yeah.
That's it. Build it.
There's definitely a trend in my discussions. I've been talking to a lot of solar entrepreneurs, some of them in the resi side, some of them on the commercial side, some of them on the software side, and there's a confluence occurring. The two industries are growing together and figuring out how to be more effective together. Ultimately, the roofers win. So if you're not friends with roofers and you're committed to growing in the resi industry, make friends with roofers. That's my advice. It's nice to see Cesar Romo, my old colleague from Continental Energy Solutions, on the live here. Shout out to Cesar, who's now living in the dream in sunny California. And all I have to say, Cesar, is I wish I was there. It's freezing cold here in Illinois, my friend, like freezing. Still, here in the middle of April, we are freezing our butts off, and you are not. So anyway, we should probably move on, John.
Okay. Even though I like talking about this topic, it's cool.
Oh, I know. This is a lovely topic, and we will be talking a lot about building integrated solar because there's some wonderful new technologies that are coming on. We're going to see the whole cladding of the building, right? For homes and commercial buildings become energy producing structures as it should be. Instead of just keeping the rain out, they're going to add power to our building, and it's a beautiful thing. We all need it.
So have you heard of Next Wave before?
Only because of you.
Well, I'm pretty cool, so I mean, gotta do it. So
is this the Taiyang News thing?
Yeah, that's so what this is the one from I Made You Say. I said you got to say this one. So so there's a few pieces of news here, but they actually buried the lead. So number one, Reliance is a really big company in Japan or in India, like a really big company, conglomerate, whole bunch of stuff. I don't know much about them. I've just learned about them recently, but I've learned that they're just a big company. They have many interests in many technologies, and now they have bought REC Group, which is the one that makes the beautiful Alpha solar panel, and they're based in Singapore.
Yeah.
that Alpha Panels, heterojunction, based on Meyer Burger Tech, wonderful. And but they bought them, and they're now also buying 4.8 gigawatts of heterojunction manufacturing gear from Maxwell, who's a Chinese machine maker for solar cell equipment. And so Reliance is saying they're going to scale up to 10 gigawatts of the technology that REC Group was pushing in Singapore, and maybe go bigger. Reliance wants to become a player. Reliance has also started doing batteries and has won incentives from the Indian government to grow. So they're doing a lot of different things. Within this heterojunction article, they reference that, and they've also invested in a company named NextWave, who's still an early stage company. But they said that they're actually going to build manufacturing capacity with NextWave's technology. And that is the buried lead, is that NextWave concept might go into manufacturing lines. And what NextWave does, and I will be corrected by people who know much more than I do, they do atomic deposition of solar cells to build them from the base up instead of cutting them from the top down. And what this means is that the cost of solar cells could drop by 50, 75%. And the electricity use, which is where most of the cost is, will drop because you're doing lasers building instead of very inefficiently chopping stuff up. And so I'm just very interested in technologies that will, first, I mean, we're literally talking building things from the atom up. That just sounds sweet. I'm sure it's much messier than that. Like you pour in a tube of liquid atoms and then they get laid out properly, or maybe I doubt it's one atom at a time, but they talk about building like 14 layers, and they get pretty detailed in certain documents on their website, how they do stuff. And I've been looking at them for like 2-3 years. They said they were going to have some sort of facilities sort of kind of maybe running in New Jersey last fall. But just like any other startup, they're a little slow at doing stuff. So, throw those grains of salt out there. But, they've been bouncing around. They got Fraunhofer support. So respectable German, like leading one on the earth. Them and NREL are my two favorite places to die. So it's just cool. A big company with a lot of money is taking a risk on some new technology that I've been hot to trot on for a couple of years. And so that's my solar panel technology of the week stretch article.
Nice. Yeah, I want to see a NextWave panel.
Yep.
And how long is it going to be before we see one of those, you think?
2047. I got to say that because in my dreams it's next week, but nothing ever happens on the time scales, I imagine. So I don't know. End of 2023, maybe. Probably not. Don't listen to anything I say. Add 4 years to it.
Yeah.
So maybe by 2025 is probably the realistic answer if I say 2023.
You're on Elon time, It's okay.
Yes, I'm working on it.
Elon said something funny in his interview on TED the other day. He said, it's hard to believe, but I'm not always right. They were talking about the timeline for full self-driving.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I've been wrong. It's harder than you think. But the thing that I tweeted about that TED talk was that he commented that, well, the robot's going to be way more popular than my electric vehicles. And he's right. If he can make a very intelligent, I don't want a super intelligent, I want a very intelligent, because the super intelligent robot will kill me, but the very intelligent one will just become my slave. And I want a good slave who cooks dinner and cleans my house and, doesn't suffer and never sleeps. So
you mortal human.
The DOE.
The DOE, yes, bidirectional. Let's talk.
Department of Energy. Our friend Jigar Shah is coming back to the show. That interview is going to drop next Tuesday. So look for that on the 25th or 6th, whenever that is. And we're talking about his work at the Loan Programs Office. Jigger's the most famous solar entrepreneur in America, really bar none. And so it's just great to have him back. And we're just geeking out on next generation technologies that he and the DOE want to help bring to fruition. And he makes this great comment that he got it wrong, that the government and the market need to work in lockstep. And he said he hasn't always paid enough mind to that. So that's his mission, is to really help the market with the force of the government. And that's the good thing. We want good government to catalyze these things. So anyway, the DOE has issued a memo on integrating vehicle to everything bidirectional charging into US infrastructure. This is so important, and I don't know if you saw that posting I made on LinkedIn, John, about the Mega, this portable carport that's being designed and developed in Florida.
I
But
didn't.
you have to pay more attention to the little bell icon in your LinkedIn. I've noticed that you have a bad habit of ignoring that bell. So go to the bell. And that will show you when you get tagged in a post. I don't know what the equivalent is on Twitter. I'm sure you're all dialed into that, but now that you're on LinkedIn and you discovered it, you just need to use the bell. The Mega is a carport, an 8 kW carport that they plan to just be able to plug into your electric car charging 50 amp outlet, right? And charge your home without, so just carport, inverter, fat 50 amp cord, just like the car charger, goes into your outlet and boom, right? So technically, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do this, but I'm sure the AHJs, and I got several comments about this, the AHJs are probably going to choke on it. So they got to work through UL certification and, figure out how to make it not blow away and not get to things, but it's a good idea. I could use one. I have a very shady roof, and so a portable carport would be a good thing. And then you can just fold it up and put it on a trailer and take it wherever you go next. But they've got a photo here of the Ford Charger, or the Mach-E. And, Ford has kind of made a splash with bidirectional charging. Of course, you're sitting on a huge battery with your EV battery that could provide resiliency to your home if you have the right infrastructure. It's just electronics, right? And there's incredible new smart panels that are coming on the market, which I geek out with on a future podcast with a gentleman named Spencer Christensen, and from Lithion, and HomeGrid is the company. And they are working with a smart panel manufacturer. Those smart panels are definitely the wave of the future. Have you geeked out on smart panels?
I haven't really looked at the individual functions, but I have watched a decent amount of it, doing residential off-grid solar, looking at Sonnen. I'm a fan of the concepts. I don't own a house, so I've never really delved into the details of the various manufacturers, and I don't do the residential solar work, but I'm super interested in managing every single plug in the house and understanding it.
Exactly. You can dynamically alter what, so if you're in island mode, then you can dynamically, just with your smartphone, say, okay, I want to prioritize, refrigeration and HVAC or something else, right? And then it doesn't have to just be, you don't need that separate panel. That's the idea, right? Today, if you install solar and battery and the hardware to have off-grid operation, they're going to install a separate panel that becomes the main panel when you're in off-grid mode. Well, this just goes around that, right? You just have one panel and it's a smart panel, and it's a beautiful thing. So we fundamentally want bidirectionality to the grid. This DOE memo has something to do with cybersecurity, which is also a good thing, because the reality is that the grid is a major national security piece of infrastructure, right? If it gets shut down remotely by somebody else, right? That's no bueno. And we've already demonstrated that we know how to do this, right? So we need. What's the next story, John?
Well, it's funny as you said that. I was thinking about the next story I'm writing for PV Magazine when we have some grid stability things that we're looking at, and we're looking at a thing that occurred in Texas. So maybe next week we'll talk about it. But in Texas, there was a grid event called the Odessa event, and 16 solar plants, 6 wind plants, and 4 gas plants all heavily reacted to a gas compressor losing a ground fault, or having a ground fault in one of its pieces of gear. And so it was just, my mind was thinking about, it was just cool. I'm going through the document this morning and tomorrow, and it's just cool 60-day report, or a 60-page report. And I was just drifting to it, thinking about all the cool stuff that I read. So much of it, every single time I write one of these new in-depth stories for PV Magazine on technical stuff, I learn new things. And it's like, my gosh, there are sciences within sciences that I just know nothing about. And I just have to accept that. So anyway, I picked up a new EV on Saturday that is an acceptable car. And it's a Hyundai Ioniq 5. It's got just over 300 miles of range. And it's a hatchback, just like the Model Y. And it comes with 2 free years of Electrify America charging.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, and the doors pop out like that. The handles pop out when you press the little button.
You push a button on the car or on your phone?
Not even on my phone. I don't have my dongle with me, but just a car key. It's got normal car keys.
Oh, got a fob. Yeah.
Yeah, there is also a phone app, but my car and the phone haven't synced yet, so still working on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the hatchback. That's the key for me, because I'm going to sleep in that in the woods, because I like doing that.
Yeah.
And so it's
kind of funny looking from that angle, but nice big trunk.
Well, actually, you know how the Tesla Model Y has that big sweet trunk that's located right underneath that back area?
Yeah.
This one has like a 3-inch wide flat thing. So it's nowhere near as wonderful as the Tesla Model Y storage.
Okay.
But that's the only, I'm sure there's other little things, but.
What about the frunk? Is there a frunk?
Nope. Frunk has got gunk in it. Frunk, no trunk. Just a big hatchback. Yep.
I like the hubcaps.
Say again?
I like the hubcaps.
Yeah, they're cool.
Are those the wheels, or is that a hubcap?
I don't know. Maybe the rims. I have no idea. I don't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
Like some person said, hey, I saw one of those, and the inside of it, the front of it looked kind of funny. I didn't like the look of it. And I said, that's funny. I've already paid for it, and I've never even sat in the front seat because I don't really care. I'm more of, I just want to buy an EV. I want it to be a good car. And I trust the Hyundai brand name, because my first car that wasn't $500 lasted to 250,000 miles. And so I'm cool with that. Everybody likes that silver one. And I would have considered it, but I think that particular model was like 10 grand more and really challenging to find. And I didn't really care. I just wanted to get a car. So far it's a nice car. I'm happy with it.
Yeah. It's good looking. It's a good looking car. Why didn't you take any whole car photos? It's the whole car that I think is pretty stunning, actually.
Yeah. I think it is as well. I just haven't done that yet. I'll find more. I'll take more. So it's a good car.
I like the whole angularity thing they got going on.
Yep. Some people are funny on that. They're calling it an origami car.
Yeah, I can see why.
I'll take some origami. So there you go.
Yeah.
So there you go. So it works. It's nice. Over 300 miles. And I'm happy with it so far. It's got a lot of space in it. There you go. 70 pictures. If you're a
It
patient
it
person.
it feels a little bit more like a Volkswagen from this angle. Um, Definitely a very different look than the Tesla. But so after incentives, how much did you end up paying for this?
After incentives, that would be including sales tax, blah, 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 39.
It's pretty affordable.
And when then you throw in that the insurance company gave me $11,000 more than I paid for the car, for
Mm-hmm.
my Tesla, that 39 sort of drops another 11 grand to 28. And Tesla gave me back all my money for the year of payments because they gave me back full amount pretty much. This ends up being like a $23,000 car for me, or a $13,000 car for me.
Why did Tesla give back money? I don't understand that.
Tesla, the insurance did, because the price of cars is through the roof right now. And my car was damaged in January, which might be the used car peak month. And if that's the case, I got back 11 grand more than I paid for the Tesla all in. They gave me a check for $33,000. I threw all of it against this car for my down payment. I was just like, you know what? Here you go. Have the cash. I'm done.
Right.
So it's a nice car. It's electric, gets the job done. I hear that the
you can straighten your hair too.
yeah. I like the lean back seat piece. I don't know if it's all USB, not USB-C. I preferred USB-C in the plugs. Also, the version that I bought doesn't have the 120 volt plugs, which I'm disappointed in, but that's okay.
Right. No native 120 volt plug in the car?
Nope.
Interesting.
Nope. And I don't think my seats do that laid back thing either. And my seats aren't leather. So nor do I.
Are there a lot of different trims?
I think there's 2 or 3. I think there's 3 trims, but I didn't really look at them because I just wanted to have a good price as I'm moving into Boston, and rent's going to go up. My rent is more than going to double.
Yeah. Did you find a place?
Yep. July 1st is my lease official date, but I can move in late May because it's a student taking off. So I'm just going to take over his June bill. So I'm going to be a Cambridge, Massachusetts resident, hanging out in downtown Boston. I'm going to be
good
cool.
Old Cambridge, huh? Nice.
Yes. You're going to hear me going to MIT in the next 3 years. That's what's going to happen. This is a goal. This has been a lifelong process to get me here.
It's only fitting.
Yep, totally. Okay, hydrogen. We're going to talk about Hydrogen Ladder with Paul Martin. That's a podcast you listen to.
Yes. So I'm not going to open that link because it's just going to open the Clean Technica podcast. But well, let's see what happens if I do that. Yeah.
I like hydrogen, by the way.
You like hydrogen?
Yep, I do.
Well, you're made of hydrogen, so you better like it. Otherwise, you're really in trouble. And so if you're a geek for hydrogen, check out the Clean Tech Talk podcast by Clean Technica. It's a wonderful podcast, and they do a deep dive on all the latest technologies in the energy and electrification. And so in this episode that I'm covering here, I'll put this in the show notes, of course, this link, but they're covering Michael Liebrick's Hydrogen Ladder. But Michael is not the guest. The guest is Paul Martin, and Paul is famous for raining on the hydrogen parade. So just Google Paul Martin, and you'll find that he's a hydrogen naysayer. But they do just a legit breakdown of the pros and cons of hydrogen. The pros are many. And one of the things that Liebrick and other point out is that, unfortunately, when you take a barrel of oil, 75% of that gets burned. And there's so many other useful products that you could make from oil, including hydrogen, because oil is a hydrocarbon, hydrogen and carbon, right? So anyway, The good news on hydrogen is that it's super abundant, right? The sun is made of hydrogen. It's the most common element. Water is made of hydrogen. Our most of the carbon and hydrogen, hydrocarbons in our bodies, right? Hydrogen. It's fundamental, but it's hard to store hydrogen. It's a very light, it's a very small molecule. It wants to run away, basically. And so you have to use a lot of energy in order to contain it. Either you compress it or you convert it into a solid metal, and that takes a lot of energy. And so energetic, it's not an easy to work with fuel, which is why Mr. Musk has stayed away from it. I'm convinced of this, and he's made some public comments about this. Right, you have to ask yourself, well, why isn't Elon doing hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, for example? And the reason is that hydrogen is just hard to contain. So anyway, wonderful breakdown. Check out Clean Tech Talk, though. That is a wonderful podcast, which I've just been doing. I've been binging on Clean Tech Talk. You have another story on hydrogen, though, too, right, John?
Yeah, I thought to put that one behind this because I just think hydrogen's cool. It does fit in some places. It creates a solid material. Well, not a solid like a metal, but it creates a material unlike wind and solar, where you have a medium that can be stored, and people seem to like it. And first off, I think everything's cool, but the fact that so many people are investing in it tells me we should pay attention to it. And so that, because I'm just like, I lean toward the electrical stuff. It's what I do. I understand the efficiency challenges that come with hydrogen, or at least I do to some degree. I've heard about them, but I also know that gasoline has done quite well being quite inefficient. And so, hey, whatever. Maybe hydrogen won't be the most efficient thing, but maybe it just gets the job done because we learn how to store it and transport it and move it like natural gas. And we hook it up to all these offshore wind turbines that are just always blowing 60% of the time, and just like push it into our infrastructure. But with that, lots of work is doing on it. And here's just a little example of a cool system that's solar plus storage plus hydrogen. And, that hydrogen gives a hard fuel backup to the solar and the storage. And maybe, in this system, I think they talk about using the hydrogen as peak demand peaking or something. But I don't know. That's why I thought to bring it up, because I just like this. I'm doing a project where we're doing solar plus storage plus gas to connect to the grid. But this deal also at some point had Bloom Energy submitting a fuel cell proposal. And that was part of the deal at some point. That opportunity fell away. It went toward gas because they just had a much better offering at the time. But, a fuel cell could have just fit in there just as well. And yep.
You have to describe the story, though, that you're referring to, because people are listening to this. Some of them are watching the video, but people are listening to it. So Panasonic, the story is from PV Magazine, a story by Emiliano Bellini. What a classic name that is. Panasonic combines fuel cells, batteries, PV to power factory in Japan. And there's a great photo here. I don't know if that is the exact photo. It looks like it is. So they got this. I like the bidirectional PV.
Mm-hmm.
They got some east-west PV, I guess.
Yep.
and then a electrolyzer.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So they're making hydrogen from water. They're storing the hydrogen, and then what are they doing with the hydrogen?
Burn it as needed, based upon peak, based upon backup. When the solar and the battery system are maxed out, and the site can take a little bit more than the battery runs.
And they're making electricity with fuel cells.
Correct.
So it's a two-directional thing. And this is a great application. It's not super efficient. The round trip efficiency of this is quite low, like on the order of 37%, I think, at best.
I didn't know it was that low. I thought it was closer to 60. Maybe it's the making of hydrogen that's 60, and then we have another layer.
You have to listen to the Paul Martin interview.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the round trip efficiency is around 37.
That's like gasoline. gasoline and coal.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is fossil fuels aren't efficient either. So we can't freak out about that. And photons are super abundant. So if you and solar panels are cheap, right? So
Hmm.
the fundamental is that solar electricity is super cheap and getting cheaper. And I just did an interview with Dave Roberts of the Volts podcast. Shout out
Dr.
to
Volt.
Dave. Yep. He is super optimistic, unusually so. I was expecting a quite dour picture of the future. We were just geeking out on climate change, but he's super optimistic about the clean energy future. So that was encouraging. Do you know Dave?
I read Dave.
Yeah,
He writes for Canary Media too now.
he does. Yeah,
Does lots of stuff with them. Yeah, I've read Dave, and he tweets a lot, but he tweets good stuff.
yeah. He's
All right.
he's he's one of the good guys.
So they did a study for a year or two at the Rhode Island Block Island off of Rhode Island wind farm, and they found no appreciable difference of fish around an offshore wind, other than maybe some more sea bass and more mussels in the fish stomachs. So
More muscle meaning mussels, the shellfish.
Yep.
Yeah, because the
Because they think,
shellfish are growing on the foundations of the wind turbines.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So that's a Rhode
Yeah.
Island story, and
How do I get rid of that
positive,
pop up?
Pop up. You might not be able to beat that pop up, Tim. That
I
just
can't
might be
do
a
anything with this Boston Globe story, but
You've been selected. You can hit the escape button. Go for that. See what happens.
oh, that worked.
Bam. So that's the Block Island facility. It's cool looking. And I'm going to visit there this summer. I've never been to Block Island, but I have it on my schedule to visit, and I'm going to visit that as well. Take a little boat tour out there.
Yeah.
And so I've been following research on offshore winds, and I'm very bullish on it. In fact, I think we should have like an international agreement where we build 2 strips of wind farms circling the Earth at like 50, 60 degrees latitude, a little further north of us, tiny bit north, and just a strip across the North Atlantic all the way to Europe. And then then we do it across the Pacific. We do it in the South Pacific and the South. And then we figure out how to get all those wires to the people. And right there, we could power the world. We wouldn't need solar. You and I could quit, Tim. We could start drinking mojitos in the offshore wind vacation lands.
Yeah, I was excited to hear Paul also make this comment that we should just wrap the Earth in HVDC. He goes,
Yeah.
and that's my whole thing. We just need to connect the entire globe with HVDC, and then problem solved, right? 24/7 solar wind. You don't even need storage then, right? You could just run it on solar and wind. The wind is blowing somewhere all the time.
The sun never sets. It's a lie. People who say the sun set, they're liars, Tim. Don't believe them.
And the sun never sets. It's so true. So
I think the global peak demand is somewhere around 2 terawatts, 2 to 3 terawatts.
Oh, that's totally doable.
That's it. So we got to have 2 terawatts. We got to have like 4 terawatts facing the sun at all points.
Yeah.
So maybe that means we got to have like, I don't know, 4 terawatts in every 4 hours, and there's 6 periods. Maybe it's 24 to 40 terawatts of electricity to run the world 24/7. And then maybe we got to double it for cars and other stuff.
100 terawatts.
I think that's it. Distributed evenly around the world, coupled. Yeah. And I bet we could cut it in half if we did my floating wind thing. We could probably get down to 50 terawatts there and 50 terawatts of wind, and then just be absolutely done.
Why does offshore wind reduce the amount of terawatts?
Because the offshore wind
If the
would,
capacity factor is much greater?
yeah, that, but especially in those bands, those are the heavy wind bands that circle the Earth. So those bands, you'd have capacity factors of like 65%. So it'd be amazing stuff, 60 to 65% on an average.
Yeah.
And when you have one in the northern hemisphere and the southern, that means you always have something doing 65%. Like we could power the world 10 times over with this double wind band idea. We would always have high capacity factor wind because you'd have it in the northern hemisphere in the winter and the southern hemisphere in the winter, their respective winters, of course. And then if you have a whole bunch of solar, it's perfectly complementary on a hemispherical perspective with the solar. So in the heavy wind month, solar is down because it's wintertime. In the heavy sun month, wind is down because it's summertime in the northern, and then flip-flops. So if you have a wind plus solar system hooked on the global HVDC,
Yep.
you're sitting pretty. Now you can start building space lasers and shoot aliens as they come into the solar system.
So we have a story about solar power bond requirement passes the Senate. Do you want to talk about this?
You really want to talk about bond requirements in Pennsylvania when we have solar powered space lasers, Tim? Tim.
Just trying to keep you on planet Earth. John's going to go photonic on us. Well, can we at least before we get the lasers? I just want the space elevator.
I agree with you. Well, we get the lake with the space elevator that's powered by solar and wind. Then we can cheaply build the space laser.
Yeah.
We're gonna take Pluto. Pluto is ours. We're gonna make it a planet.
Make it a planet. I don't know, man.
Pluto a planet again. That's my new hashtag.
I think we should take a vote. Should we make John move to Pluto?
I'll aim the space laser inbound. We'll take over the Earth. All right. Pennsylvania is a very
give us a background on Pennsylvania. What's going on big picture with the Pennsylvania solar market?
Pennsylvania's solar market is very light, very small. Less than 1% of the state's electricity comes from solar. A lot of nuclear, a lot of coal, a lot of gas. There have been a few large-scale opportunities developed because of the state SREC market that it ranges from 1 to 3 cents. And so if you build solar in Pennsylvania and you sell the electricity, you can get this SREC. And the utilities have a small obligation to get 5, 6, 7% of their electricity from solar. And they're slowly creeping toward it. And right now it's under 1%. But
there's a burgeoning community solar market, right?
There's a hypothetically burgeoning community solar market. It's stuck in the politics. And so when you see a bill, and this is why I posted this, there was a solar bill passed in Pennsylvania, Timothy, except the solar bill added more costs to solar power projects. The Senate decided not to revisit the community solar program. So, maybe this is good though, because now we'll have more street cred because people want to complain and say, hey, your solar power plant's going to throw those solar panels in the garbage. Because that's the thing that the fossil fuel interest or whomever else is pushing into the news to make people afraid of solar. Oh, they're toxic. No, they're not. And so this is an interesting little piece of legislation to move. I personally would use it as leverage because we already really have to consider decommissioning bonds in our projects anyway. So this didn't add any real costs. This added officializing the costs that we have to do and making it on every single project. Okay, that sucks. We'll deal with it. But maybe we can then use the fact that Pennsylvania is thinking about solar and locking it down and making it clean to our advantage and say, you're right. We now manage our solar panels. This is required by law. Let's get that community solar on the horse. Maybe this means we might get a community solar thing finally signed in Pennsylvania. Let's see what happens. So there's that. That's why I posted it, because I watched the market. We got a bunch of projects there trying to figure out what to do. We even put a couple of them into the PJM interconnection just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
Even though we don't think they'll win, but hey, let's see what happens in the world.
When you say you put them into the PJM interconnection, what is the economic play there?
Wholesale plus SREC. So 4 or 5 cents plus 3, 4, 5 cents plus SREC.
Mm-hmm.
So 6, 7 cents.
So it's basically a merchant power plant then?
I mean, you would sign a PPA with somebody, but yeah. It's not merchant because you're not selling it pure wholesale, but you're competing with the wholesale rate. So that's really what would occur, is that you're competing with the wholesale electricity rate, and you would sell it through a power company, and somebody would buy it from you via a PPA. And so, yeah, but you will have merchant market exposure. I don't know how the technicals of that kind of stuff works, because you're pumping electricity into the grid at a certain time and somebody's taking it, but they're not necessarily matching it. So I've never really been an IPP. I just read about that type of stuff, independent power producer. But yeah, so and we also, I guess, wanted to experiment with what being in the PJM market's like.
Okay.
So,
I'm with you.
So I want some community solar in PA.
Yeah, I do too. So we have time for one more story. What is that story? Because there's a bunch of stories on the docket.
It's always a bunch of stories. Well, let's check them out. So we got natural gas prices being through the roof. We got wire that's above ground, 6 terawatt hours in the battery manufacturing pipeline by 2031. A piece of history in 1938, the first published evidence of the globe being warmed by CO2. And then a new racking system from Nextracker. So I think I'm going to go with the question from you, Tim. Have you ever, maybe we should get these guys on the show so we can ask them some questions. But racking wiring that's above ground.
Yeah.
We have to do it in certain places to lower our ground coverage ratio and lower the amount of ground that we upset. And, so right now we're considering above ground wiring and different solutions from the modules back to the combiners and somewhere in between there. Then we go, combiners back to the main inverters. And so I'm guessing from the modules to the combiners, we're going to go above ground with our wiring. And then from the combiners to the inverters, we're going to be underground. I'm not the electrical, but I think that's how it's going to work. So do you have experience, and what's your opinion on above ground wiring and specifically rodents plus 25-year UV lifetimes?
Yeah. So when I was at SAMNA a couple of weeks ago, I ran into Snake Tray, and they are promoting an above ground solution across the board, and they've been gathering. So that photo that's on screen now is indicative of what they're talking about. I don't think that's a Snake Tray solution,
No,
but anyway,
they're lower down, I believe.
Okay. So there's the cab. The cab is very popular. And by the way, cab is a manufacturer that hires people with disabilities. So that's a good thing.
I didn't know that.
And
That's Snake Tray, isn't it?
Yeah, this is Snake Tray's free air. And Snake Tray has a white paper, which I'll get Ken to send you. Ken at Snake Tray. What's Ken's last name?
Sanger. Sanger.
Sanger. Yes. Ken Sanger. We love Ken. And
I'm looking at their white paper page right now.
Yeah. So they've been doing a study on a large utility scale project where on one sector or one segment of the array, they did underground wiring, and on the other, they did above ground. And they think they've discovered that they're getting something like 5 to 8% more power out of the above ground system. The theory being that they have fewer ohmic losses. Ohmic losses occur when the wire heats up and there's more heat generated, right? So I think this is controversial though. So I don't have a strong opinion. I just pay attention to what's going on in the industry, and there seems to be a trend towards above ground. And, Yes,
Pretty much
rodents.
every tracker is above ground these days, is what I'm told.
A lot of above ground happening. It makes maintenance more complicated, but you avoid trenching and uh, or directional boring, and those two things are expensive and disturb the soil, and ultimately, I think, are just headaches. So, if you can do above ground, absolutely do it. And I don't know about UV protection. Obviously, we have to figure that out because you want the wire to last for 30 years. And so maybe shade structures, or snake tree just says, well, it's durable. We've done the tests, and
Yeah.
it's going to last.
In
So
Pennsylvania, there's an environmental consideration that says if you break more than a kilometer of disturbed ground, then you have to move up into the next level of environmental analysis.
mhm.
And we have a 25, um, we have an acre of disturbed ground, maybe not a kilometer, pardon me. And we have a 25-acre project that we're using snake tray on, or above ground wiring, but snake tray is what we're modeled with. And that makes it so we don't disturb ground, and it keeps us under the 1 acre of disturbance. And so our environmental effect is lesser, and our paperwork hurdles are lesser. And so I'm very interested in that. I work with wire that's defined as being 25-year on rooftops, and some of it's exposed in many places. So somebody has to believe in it. And when I talk to the wire companies, they believe in it. So I'm interested. So I'm dealing with it with our first ground mount system that's pretty big, and so I'm learning and watching. And when this article hit, I immediately read the whole thing. So I'm like, oh, this is something I need to know a lot more about that I know nothing about, Timothy. And
Yeah, it's. I was talking to Heiko the other day. They make clips for wire management, for example, and this gentleman was saying that despite all that, right, the manufacturers are saying the stuff is going to last. Despite that, there are failures in the field. And so we just have to be careful, and you have to do a lot of due diligence. The solar industry is a young and fast growing industry, right? So
Mhm.
there is a lot of uncertainty still. We need to grow up. We need to put on our big boy pants and really start acting like we're building infrastructure that's durable for 50 years. Screw 30. I want 50-year infrastructure.
Agree.
So, uh, and we should get some of these guys on the show. I agree. We should get Snake Tray to come on. Um, I'll caution you, like, the manufacturers have a vested interest, right? So it has to be third party vetted, independent engineering studied, blah blah blah, right? It's not enough that some sponsored research by the manufacturer. And that's you know if when you're paying for the study, there is a bias, I think, intrinsically. um so I don't know how we get around that, but it's important.
I'm writing Ken Singer about his.
Yeah, I'm sure Ken would love to come visit us on some Thursday morning when he's not traveling. He travels like a beast, but
And he's a good sales guy. I never responded to him on LinkedIn because we weren't buying that and wasn't my thing. Uh, but he's out there, and we're probably going to use his product. So he's probably going to know that he influenced me
yep,
via his messages, even though we didn't directly speak. So
yep.
that's probably not good for salespeople to know, though. That just by harassing you, you can influence a procurement person, because then they'll
Well,
just
just
harass
it's
you.
psychology. You got to make
Yes.
numerous touches, and
Yep.
eventually it works. And you got to have a need. So
Well, that's fundamental. I mean, the need is what matters most, and we didn't have the need at the moment when Ken was reaching out, but now we do. So I have messaged Ken, and so expect there to be a reintroduction, because you've met him before, it seems.
yeah, Ken came on the Solar Podcast, my other show,
Oh,
and then I ran into him in California
oh,
just a couple weeks ago. So he uh, he was talking up his new white paper,
sweet.
and I want to
Maybe we'll
see.
get it on. I want to get it on PV Magazine too.
Oh, there you go.
That would be neat. There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Where can we find you, Tim?
Gosh, definitely do not shout from the rooftops because that will not work. But just go on Twitter, reach out to me, TG Montague. That's also my Gmail. It's no secret. LinkedIn, I like LinkedIn. Despite John Weaver not liking LinkedIn, I really like LinkedIn. And you can find me there. So reach out to me. But more importantly, go to cleanpower.group/podcast and subscribe to the show on YouTube or on your favorite audio platform and give us a rating and review so that others can find this. That's the only reason we do this, right, John, to grow the industry. So let's grow. And with that, how can people find you, John?
Best way, commercialsolarguy.com. We have a contact us page and a whole bunch of other random internet connections between us and the whole world. There you go, Chris. Subliminal messaging. Call John Weaver. That's awesome, Chris. That's a nice little timing. How'd you get that up there, Tim? You're getting all kinds of techno smart. I like this.
Yeah, I once in a while I get it right.
Yeah,
But
there we go. Perfect. So yeah, that's how LinkedIn, Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, be warned, you will be bombarded with all kinds of cool solar news constantly. And but those are the places. So commercialsolarguy.com. Click it.
that we will say, let's grow solar and storage. I'm Tim Montague. We'll see you next week, everyone.